The show is starting. The finest in underground television.
In billow lost Poseidonis, I was the god Ugabalis. My 3 horns were of Similor. Above my double diadem, my one eye was a moon-wan gem, found in a monstrous meteor. Incredible far peoples came, called by the thunders of my fame, and fleetly passed my terraced throne, where Titan, pards, and lions stood, as pours a never-lapsing flood before the wind of winter blown. Before me, many a chorister made offering of alien myrrh, and copper-bearded sailors brought from isles of ever-foaming seas enormous lumps of ambergris and corals intricately wrought. Below my glooming architraves, one brown eternal file of slaves came in from mines of Chalcedon, and camels from the long plateaus laid down their sard and peridos, their incense and their cinnamon. But now, within my sunken walls, the slow, blind ocean serpent crawls, and sea worms are my ministers. And wandering fishes pass me now, or press before mine eyeless brow, as once the thronging worshipper. Clark Ashton Smith.
Here before you is an opportunity to plumb the depths of the mysteries that confound and intrigue us. A chance to ask the big questions. Dr. Hal is not concerned with questions of trivial matters or of facts that are easily gathered elsewhere. Dr. Hal seeks the questions that transcend fact. He stands before you, ready to take questions that used to be brought to wise and aged sages on distant mountaintops. These questions can now be asked from the comfort of your living room. No Sherpas required. Simply direct your favorite web browser to our new and simple-to-use website, AskDrHalShow.com, or click the Ask Dr. Hal button below our live Twitch broadcast. You will be spirited away to the magical Co-Fee portal, where all you need do is submit your burning question in the handy message field, and assign a monetary value you wish to place upon it. Our stage ghost will then convey your message live to Dr. Hal, and he will answer in the manner that only Dr. Hal can. Don't worry, we never sell, share, or solicit using your provided email address. PayPal will ensure that your valuable love offering goes directly to Dr. Hal. Links to submit questions and more can be found at our website, AskDrHalShow.com. Do not let this opportunity to consult a modern-day oracle, a seer for seers, a man steeped in the arts, sciences, and esoteric studies, pass you by. We present to you, through the very miracle of the internet itself, the one and only Dr. Hal Robins, now making house calls. Well, hello,
Surprise.
everybody. Surprise, we're back.
Good evening, everyone.
And we're in the slot machine setup.
I was not prepared to be in this very small window.
Well, you know what happened? Your producer sometimes is a dipshit. Oh, so am I allowed to say that on Twitch?
I think you can
It's all
say
right.
that. That's
I don't know what
fine.
the problem is.
I'm a sub-genius. I actually forgot to put the scene in with all of, so this was the only one I had that we were all in.
Well, it works, I think.
I should work for the Republican Party.
Put your application in now.
Be the gremlin in the machine. What a month, hey?
Yes.
Absolutely.
My
All sorts of travel for me.
God, we took a month off, and boy, the world sort of changed under our feet in a weird kind of
It
way.
did indeed. After Pube Fest, when I was on a remote island where I couldn't be connected, then all sorts of things happened in the news.
That was only like slightly more than a month ago. I mean, and it feels like it, oh my God, it feels like 6 months went by. It's astonishing. So, but we're here to have a show tonight. So welcome everybody. Glad you're all here. Welcome Dr. Hal.
Yes.
Welcome Professor Gofflin.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
And while when we do the next little bit, I'll duck out and fix our screen so everything is where it should be. I think I can do that in the background.
Very good.
Theoretically, it's all theoretical until we actually do it. So you never know what's
right.
going to happen.
Correct.
But in any event, we've got a show. So, Professor Goff, you had something on Superman. I want to say that you wanted to. Let me
Matter
bring.
of fact, I
About
do.
Let me
The
bring you up.
Bulleteers specifically.
Yes, well, sort of. In general, speaking about the Superman Fleischer cartoons. So this, the Bulleteers was the 5th of 17 shorts that they eventually did in this series. And that had kind of already established the very heavily rendered rotoscoped style by that point. And of course, we appreciate that today for its sort of lush beauty. At the time, however, Max and Dave Fleischer wanted nothing to do with Paramount and this project. When Paramount initially approached them about doing something to capitalize on the increasing popularity of the Superman comics, they decided to bid so high that Paramount would not possibly want to follow up on this. So their initial bid to do each short, they wanted $100,000, which adjusted for inflation is $1.6 million per short. That's Pixar money. To their horror, Paramount accepted with some back and forth, and they initially began to bargain over this. And they settled on $50,000 per short, which is still an absurd amount of money. So the Fleischers ended up with far more financial support than they ever had previously for any project, for this project that they did not want. So that's the interesting factoid for this. Yeah, sales magic, Onan Canabite says from the Twitch chat.
Well, they produced a number of really lush-looking cartoons, as we know.
Absolutely.
Amy, do we know why it never made it into copyright, and why these things are public domain?
I don't actually know. I believe it may be a function of just the date that it came out. There was some kind of interesting math that was
Professor
going on with
Gofflin,
that.
sorry, I dead named you. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. This is acceptable. I'll answer to just about anything. But the copyright situation actually had mostly to do with the date that it initially was registered, and I don't believe they were registered in time was the problem. There's a statute of limitations on when you can register something for it to be copywritten. So
good for us.
Yes, good for us, and well, ultimately, hopefully for Fleischer, who's getting something of a resurgence recently in the public consciousness. So
yes,
and I don't know if anybody was following the chat, but Dr. Billy commented on the music for the opening. That was an AI piece that we had generated for us. The reason we did that is because we got a copyright notice. Not really a strike, but Twitch cut our feed last month because the opening music is copyrighted. So we put our own music in, and now it's back in the public domain again. So you're welcome.
That Twitch.
Exactly.
So,
oh goodness.
but
It takes more than that to stop the Ask Dr. Hal show.
we have a question, and I'll just go ahead and get it started. But Professor Gofflin will be coming back, and we'll be swapping questions on and off tonight because you
right.
don't want to
Before
look
we-
at me all the time.
But before we move on, we did want to have one important bit of business that we wanted to get straight up at the top. We do want to wish a very happy birthday this upcoming week to our very own Reverend Ivan Stang. So happy birthday, Stang. Yeah, it is a pleasure to have you here in the Twitch chat. So thank you very much for being here.
Hope you're enjoying yourself.
Feet up, back not hurting. That'd be good. Actually being able to hear that we're saying this to you, that'd be
Yes.
nice too. I can relate with all of that. I'm about to get hearing aids myself.
Mm.
You'll notice I say, I'm sorry, I missed that quite a lot.
Well, it's a useful thing to say sometimes.
No, I'm the poster child for why you shouldn't listen to loud music on headphones.
Well,
My
that'll do it.
Japanese is a little rusty. What was it that Dr. Sarazawa just said? Oh, well. Anyway, let's continue and see what the questions are like this time.
I do want to mention, Goff, you know what I did? I brought back last, what I think last month you were not on the show last month, and I brought back that, so I am missing the scenes where you are in, except for this one, which I actually fixed, and the other two I didn't.
Okay,
Did I
no
mention I'm a
problem.
sub-genius?
We'll roll with it. This is what we do.
Standard procedure.
So it's safer to say sub-genius, I guess, than dumbass. My best legume voice. All right, folks. So let's go ahead to questions. And Amy, I'm probably not going to be able to bring you back this scene except in this framework. That's
You
why I
got
wanted
it.
to mention
No
it out
problem.
loud.
Sounds good.
And me, I like it.
We fix things on the fly. Anyway, all right.
I'll be standing by.
I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Okay.
Hey, Hal, we've got questions. Are you ready?
I'll do my best to stand against the push of these questions.
Let me see what I got. I am reloading my question queue. I do believe we got a lot of stuff waiting here for us.
A lot, eh?
I do believe we do. We had some technical difficulties on the last show with it being Father's Day, and we had
Yes, that was most memorable of the glitches that we were confronted with.
But the problem is I was going back and looking at these questions, and a couple of them didn't look familiar. So I might read a couple of the ones from last month back to you. As a matter, I know for a fact one or two of these are new. Back from June, perhaps, and perhaps one from July, because I don't think everybody got the notice that we were on hiatus last month. So we managed to fit 3 months of hiatus into one. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, I have a lot of questions, though. Let me take a look what we've got here.
Well, let's try one for size.
Goodness gracious. How about a question from Reverend Big John?
All right.
And it is a $4 question, Dr. Howland. Is it possible to tar and feather yourself?
Well, Reverend Dr. Big John, if one is into self-deprecation and self-abnegation, it is certainly possible. You need the hot tar and you need an abundant supply of feathers. Both are not easy to get as they once were. It used to be you could just go out on the road and more days than not find a hot tar operation going on, and children often disrupted this procedure, as is described in Booth Tarkington's books, by taking the tar, playing in the tar, covering themselves with sheets of tar, and so forth. This juvenile practice is the first step. The second one is simply in dumping the feathers. Of course, I don't think even mypillow.com uses actual feathers to stuff pillows anymore, but they can be found. The only question is, why should one wish to do it? Generally, this procedure is more pleasurable for the tarers than the taree, but for your own purposes and needs, if you need to do it, I think you will be able to, and I wish you well.
I was in the background fixing screens. Sorry.
I thought I heard a little chime.
You did.
Well,
You
let's
did.
try another.
Let me see. I have a $20 question, Dr. Hal, from our good friend Xenofact.
All right.
Let me go ahead and open it up here. Dr. Hal, at times the many demands of the world make it hard to prioritize. What is the most slackful way for us to know what to tackle first in this pink labyrinth of culture?
Well, I have spoken to the Overman on just this subject, and he is famous for doing whatever he wants to do at the time at which it occurs to him. And that is the way that Philo does it, and I would imagine that is the most immediately slackful way of praxis. And yet, by not ordering things in what may be the most efficient cue, but rather the most immediately gratifying, it is possible to create knots and tangles further along the line, which will require greater effort in order to keep the slack flowing at the same specific rate. I think with these and other slack-related procedures, trial and error is the best way to go. The trial may prove productive, and as for the error, as the Proverbs of hell say, if the fool will persist in his folly, he will become wise. $20 is a most generous donation, and here is a poem by Ruth Stone. To an Ancestor. Sir, will I know your voice in paradise when I am free of the loutish flesh and risen above anguish, yea, perceiving without eyes? Before my turn, you loved the flesh that dies, even as I marveled on the compact prison. Sir, will I know your voice in paradise? Then, more than now, the meat was beset by flies, the appetite and soul by guilty fission, above anguish, yea, perceiving without eyes. My speaking voice still turns the tunes it tries. Here, where the fire is mortal, I press on. Sir, will I know your voice in paradise? You, who before my grandsire could surmise, spewed your descendants in one grand emission, above anguish, yea, perceiving without eyes. When my real ear, that in the flesh ear lies, joins with the several parts' eternal mission, sir, will I know your voice in paradise, above anguish, yea, perceiving without eyes?
There we go. And Dr. Hal, I think we're going to do those two for starters, and we're going to do our first monster movie moment here.
Oh, yes.
We have an interesting one. We're replaying a couple of ones that we've done in the past because we really want people to see these things, and we're not sure that everybody gets a chance to see them. So we're going to replay a couple of these, and one of them is Mosquito.
Oh, mosquito. Oh, yes. A fearsome insect, the human race's eternal enemy.
And apparently it has an alternate title of The Swarm, but that was only mentioned in its trailer. But Professor
Well, that may be
Gofflin,
because there was another movie called The Swarm about killer bees, a different
Right.
type of insect.
You're right. I remember that now. Exactly
There were
true.
actually several alternate titles for this movie, which we will get into
Oh.
momentarily.
Oh, they
We are
were
going to have to
confused.
find that out.
It's one of
Well,
those movies. I think there were sub-geniuses involved in the making of this movie, but
It seems likely.
This clip will certainly indicate that.
all right. Well, in any event, here it comes, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Yes, a star-studded cast for that one. I'm not sure we're meant to know who any of those people are.
Well, Gunnar Hansen,
True.
known for his role of Leatherface, I believe.
Yes, yes. So that was an interesting one. That was originally slated for release in 1994. It was supposed to get a very wide theatrical release originally, but did not make it to home video until 1995 because the distributor Hemdale filed for bankruptcy in 94. So it went direct to video after that. This film had 3 working titles. The first of them was Skeeters. When they discovered that there was another film named Skeeter, they abandoned that. It was then called Blood Fever, and I'm not sure why that one was abandoned. That one was okay. And then finally, Night Swarm, as shown here in the trailer and also in Fangoria magazine. And then, yeah, we eventually get down to Mosquito. The effects in this film, the mosquito effects, were a combination of stop motion and puppetry. So interesting on that front. However, allegedly, the film's original special effects artist walked off the set to smoke cigarettes and never returned. There is a shot of the mosquito blowing up at the end, featured very prominently. The crew decided to fill the prop mosquito with their lunch leftovers, and if you go through frame by frame, you can actually see a big piece of lettuce just sailing past the camera. So that's all I've got.
Well, that's quite a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
So
suppose this is available on DVD or Blu-ray or what have you.
maybe it
is
never made
indeed.
it to Blu-ray,
No,
but
it did.
DVD.
It did.
Oh,
Yeah,
it did?
It
Oh.
even has like a 20-year anniversary edition of it, I want to say, that came
Oh
out a
my
couple of years ago.
goodness.
Believe it or not, it's that
Oh.
old, yes.
With special scenes re-added and so forth.
I'm not sure. I did not get that version of it. I got the cheap version.
How often in movies you've seen a monster bothering someone and they try to shoot at it, but they say, no, don't shoot, you'll hit so-and-so. And in this case, they do just that, which is breaking that strange rule.
Well, hey, Reverend Gofflin, good news. I fixed your scene, so it is working now. So you can come in and read questions. Thank you very much.
Fabulous. All right. Well, let me know whenever you would like me to, and I will stand by.
I
And there
feel
was something about 2-part questions where we only did one part, or did we do both parts?
we'll do the second part. Sorry.
We'll get right to it.
Yep, we're on it. Professor Gofflin, will you want to take that one, and I'll just take the next one.
Certainly, I can do that.
All right, let's give this a try. Where did I put it? There it is.
Tar and feather
Oh,
them.
Hey, Amy, I got to break in. I'm sorry, you don't have sound. Let me give you sound.
Oh.
But
Okay.
I heard it.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
quite all
heard
right.
it.
Well, okay, why don't you go ahead and
our-
read the question? We'll just stay on the screen with you.
I'll read it one more time for the audience.
My
So this is
apologies.
a follow-up question from Dr. Reverend Big John. If a subgenius makes a false prophecy, is it appropriate to tar and feather them?
Well, I don't know from what non-subgenius, supposedly moral platform one would initiate such an aggressive rebuke. Let us remember that as subgeniuses, according to our special doctrines, everything a subgenius says or asserts automatically becomes part of the lore of the Church of the Subgenius. So any prophetic utterance cannot, by definition, be a false one. It may appear to be, but we know that there is an interpretation which will make it spot on. And if anyone were to try to violate this, even a subgenius, the entire thing would still ring true. The statement, apparently false, would have ramifications of truth. And if anyone could circumvent that, someone who was such a quisling to pinkness and a traitor to subgeniusdom in that almost incredibly unlikely instance, the tar and feathers would be waiting, but I think it hardly probable, as I said before.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
That's a standard subgenius doctrine, so.
I got your sound fixed, Professor Gofflin.
Oh, thank you very much.
The funny thing is I was able to hear the sound completely, but the audience was left bewildered and without the ability to hear the sound, I think.
Yes, unfortunately, but that's all right. We've got it handled. We are professionals.
This is the lovely thing about live stuff, is that you just never know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to go wrong. It's 1,000 moving parts. It's really...
It's live theater, folks.
It's complicated, and I'm an idiot.
Like the old days of live TV that we know of, but none of us remember.
Well, I mean, it is exactly like that. It's we use a software called OBS, not to get off on a side subject, but it's open source software, and it gives, our little operation all the power of a 1980s UHF station. It's amazing. It's astonishing what that software does. So I'm putting a little pitch in for it. Anybody that wants to do this sort of thing, OBS.
It's pretty cool, especially when it works. Right?
Right? And amazingly, the less stupid you are about it, the better it works. It's funny how that goes. Things that I swore were broken, we were never going to fix, all of a sudden now magically, things just sort of work. But let me go ahead and read a question for you, Dr. Hal. We've got a couple more, and then we're going to go to our next bit. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'm back. And Professor Gofflin will bring you back shortly. I have a $35 question, Dr. Hal, from our good friend Dr. Wolfgang Amadeus Gotthardammerung. And it is, my question is, Dr. Hal, have you ever trod the boards? i.e. appeared in stage plays, dramas, as opposed to your usual MC roles? And if so, do you have any stories from those experiences? And if not, are you a fan of stage drama?
Well, thank you, Dr. Gotthardammerung. In fact, I have much stage experience. And when I was quite a young child, I appeared in a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream as Puck. I remember they painted my little face with luminous paint to make it glow as I delivered my lines. And I associated with people in days not so far after that who also put on shows. And I was in The Wizard of Oz, I believe. Perhaps I was the wizard. We had fun with the big talking head in that production. Later, in my 20s, I became part of a theatrical troupe, and we wrote and produced our own material. And some of the ones that I did got good reviews. This was hard to do because where we were, which was Tucson, Arizona, there was an old lady who was the chief reviewer for the Republican newspaper, the Tucson Daily Citizen, that used to exist, and she would damn us with faint praise, sometimes even saying something like, for a moment, it looked as if the production of Mad Dog was quite excellent and good enough to appear on Broadway. Then came the second act. It's the sort of thing that she would write. But the last show I did, which was in 1976, the last one I wrote, got a glowing review from this person. Unfortunately, it did nothing for our future prospects, and I kind of got out of the theatrical biz until much later, after I came to San Francisco, and again we began to do it. But I appeared in Beyond the Fringe and more shows than I can actually remember. And of course, the theater is a great thing. I endorse it. I definitely believe in it and appreciate being cast in anything. This poem is from Edgar Allan Poe. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived, whom you might know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with but one thought, to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, yet we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this is the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, coveted her and me. Yes, this is the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind blew out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of others far wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above or the demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so, all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Hal. I have another question here for you. This is from our dear friend, Reverend Dr. Penny. This is a $23 question, and Dr. Penny asks, how can I best tell whether something is done by robots or humans?
Hmm. Well, that's getting harder and harder to tell, isn't it, Dr. Penny? But your one chance for a guide is that humans make characteristic mistakes, and so do robots. Robots generally do not make the mistakes that humans do because they are programmed not to make them. But through ignorance of the subtleties of human interaction, the robots may put in something which is inane or simply nonsensical while offering it as though it is part of a logical and complete answer. And one grows to recognize these things, and we may be content with that until the programming of the robots, the artificial intelligence, increases its subtlety to a level where their responses are indeed virtually indistinguishable from those of living humans of flesh and blood. This is from Shakespeare. Fear no more the heat of the sun, or the furious winter's rages. Thou thy worldly task hast done, home art gone, and ta'en thy wages. Golden girls and lads all must, like chimney sweepers, come to dust. Fear no more the frown of the great. Thou art past the tyrant's stroke. Care no more to clothe and eat. For thee the reed is as the oak. The scepter, learning, physic, must all follow thee and come to dust. Fear no more the lightning flash or the all-dreaded thunderstone. Fear not slander, censure rash. Thou hast finished joy and moan. All lovers young, all lovers must consign to thee and come to dust. No exorciser harm thee, nor no witchcraft charm thee. Ghost unlaid, forbear thee, nothing ill come near thee. Quiet consummation have, and renowned be thy grave.
That was amazing. The Annabelle Lee is one of my favorite Poe poems, by the way. Got a lot of response from the audience on that one. People really
they like that one, huh?
Stirring.
Oh, that's good.
But, so we have regular meetings to put the show together. And
yes, we do.
Because this month was going to be a little tight for everybody involved, Dr. Hal's going to be at Burning Man, by the way. So if that's incentive to go out there and crash that party, Dr. Hal will be there.
If we'll be crashing, you're welcome to come to, if that is if you're in Burning Man, come to, what?
It's more fun if you crash.
These are sub-geniuses. You got to make it appealing to them, make it decadent and weird, or they won't.
But how difficult it is to get in past the barrier, almost impossible. Not worth it. It's hard even if you are legit to get in. But I was saying that once you are in, if you are in, come to the center camp and see the show I'm putting on the main stage, which directly follows the Cacophony cocktail party. And following that show, I'm going to do some other performances, including singing a song with Pittsburgh's own Fat Mandy, and Foo Foo Ha and others will be participating there.
Oh, my goodness.
We anticipate a good turnout and look forward to that show.
That sounds amazing.
Now I feel like I'm missing out. My goodness.
Yeah, I really don't want to go in the desert right now. I'm just.
I
didn't want to go to Philly earlier in the week. I'm going to go to the desert. Good Lord.
Philly was hot, as you remember, and then there was the sight of a cow falling from the heavens, which we saw. Did you not? You were
No,
there.
oh yeah, I was there. I felt the
Yeah.
ground
Yeah.
shake. That
It
was
landed quite a thump, definitely.
for our audience who may not know what we're talking about. We were at Pube Fest, and it took place on a farm. And on that farm, they had some cows.
E-I-E-I-O.
Yeah, yeah, AFL-CIO. And we watched one of the cows got up onto the second floor of the barn, busted through the wall, and was hanging by its back legs out of this broken wall about 10 feet above the ground. And the crowd was looking on horrified as this poor cow is dangling as though the sword of Damocles. And
Yes, all the farm dogs knew something abnormal had happened, and they all started barking at the top of their voices. And the farmer also didn't know what to do and went into the barn. But before anything could happen, the rest of the cow came crunching through the rotten wall of the barn, and the cow crashed to earth, falling more than its length into the cow pasture. And we thought maybe we were there seeing what farmers often are familiar with, death on the farm, which happens for a number of reasons. But after a while, the cow got up and started walking around. It seemed to be unhurt from this voyage through space. And at the same time, they let other cows into the pasture. And in less than a minute, we couldn't tell the one that fell from the others that were walking around.
it was a goddamn miracle is what it was, Dr. Howe. It was a
An
goddamn
omen.
miracle.
An omen which we must struggle to interpret.
Yes, indeed.
You know, and we I pick on sub-geniuses sometimes. But being one myself, you know, it's projection, I assure you. But you know, I've got to say, to everyone's credit, not a single person had their camera out photographing it. And this was something, man, you do not see every day. And not a single person was photographing, because you know that you could put that out on YouTube and got a million hits on it.
I suppose, but we were all just sort of dumbfounded, not expecting to see a cow crash through the wall of the barn or to fall. It all happened fairly quickly, although it seemed as if it took longer than it did because of our heightened response to it.
I was proud of the empathy that came from the audience. I think it was actually it should be mentioned that people were more empathetic than like, oh, let me get this on YouTube. So I was touched, probably because I was looking for something to touch me.
Well, that would certainly serve. But I think we should say that Pube Fest went extremely well and had X-Day elements, which we were happy to continue.
It was a hoot. St. Joyce and I had a most excellent time. We very much enjoyed it. Now, I will say that when I said, so we'll be back next year, and the answer was, well, not here. So I think they're looking for other pastures to do it next year, but hopefully they'll do it again next year. It was a fine little festival, and I very much enjoyed it. A great bunch of sub-geniuses were there.
Enjoyed the people, yes.
Very well attended, and Dr. Howe was in good form.
Well, thanks for that.
So, but speaking of good form, we have these weekly meetings, as I was saying, and because we were kind of on a short schedule this month, we said, well, you know what, let's bring back some things that people may not have had a chance to see before. And, what do you want to show? And this one was unanimously chosen. This is originally from the Abbott and Costello Colgate Hour, if memory serves.
A variety show.
Mm-hmm.
And glorious black and white.
This couple, it's a married couple, doing a dance routine after a fashion, very unusual. Wouldn't be here if it wasn't.
The slithering serpent dance.
It's magical. So I hope you all enjoy this, and we'll be back in a few minutes with more questions for the good doctor. See you in a couple minutes.
Close attention.
Where is it? There it is. C is.
Beautiful. Mm.
Amazing performance.
They weren't really around. Their name slips me offhand, but they weren't really
Oh.
around after. Do you have a name?
I do. Their names are
Professor Gofflin.
Janik. Their names were Janik and Arnaut. They were a French couple of performers. And I don't really know much about them. There's not much to be had on the internet about this couple. Other than I think the wife died fairly early.
2 years
That's
after this performance.
yes, exactly. So other than that, no, there's not a lot of information about them, but interesting performance.
Wow,
Well, we're lucky to be able to see it.
Ooh,
Yes.
man. Yeah, that's a cool perform. We've got other stuff too in the queue that you'll be seeing.
Yes.
But we have questions for Dr. Hal because that's what the name of the show is.
Well,
So,
let's answer some of those.
and audience, we have time. Get those questions in. We're always happy to see those questions, and of course the love offerings that accompany them. All right, Dr. Hal, Professor Gofflin, I'm going to bring you back in here in just a few minutes for the next question.
All right,
But
standing
in the
by.
meantime, we have a question from, I think it was from last month, and I think it came into the queue after we had closed the show, but it's from our old friend Popus Lilith von Fraumensch,
Mm-hmm.
who it was lovely to see her on the show last month, I will say. It's always good to see Popus Lil. Haven't seen her in a number of years. But in any event, here is that question. And it is a $15 question. And it is the Fire Sign Theater once asked, why does the porridge bird lay its eggs in the air? I've never heard a satisfactory answer to this question. Care to elaborate?
Well, we're familiar with this classic conundrum, but let us parse it as far as logic will take us. The egg laying is the method of propagating the species. To emit eggs which would crash to the earth would not do this. And in fact, the care of eggs after being laid is an extremely important part of their development. When you consider the dinosaur egg, for example, the barnyard fowl, the chicken, must turn its egg periodically. But if you were to try this with one of the eggs of the dinosauria, you would destroy the forming embryo. The condition for gestating an embryo in an egg, though a tremendous advance from the previous condition of eggs being laid in the water, still means that extreme care must be taken. So jettisoning an egg in the air does not seem an example of the extreme care, does it? But the porridge bird is unusual in that its eggs are unusually buoyant, as we conceive. In fact, they are of neutral buoyancy, just as the giant squid essentially weighs nothing in the ocean depths because of its neutral buoyancy. In the air, the rare eggs of this rarer bird can settle to the ground if they choose, or continue to drift on the wind until a porridge bird chick emerges and rapidly becomes volant, rapidly enough to keep from crashing to the ground itself. This has always been our interpretation of that conundrum. Why does the porridge bird lay its eggs in the air? And yet, without knowing anything about this bird or its eggs, we would be logically impelled to answer, because it does. That is to say, because this is the way it succeeds. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, beside the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound, the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
I think it's back to me. Is it back to you, Amy?
No, it's back to you.
It is back to
Back
me.
to you.
Back to who's on first?
I lost track. We're very purple today. I'm noticing. It's quite
yeah,
a.
we have a purple sort of theme happening, and that was entirely by accident.
We're color coordinated. What
A
can I tell you?
convergence. A
Indeed.
coincidence.
I have a question here. It is a $12 question, Dr. Hal, and it is it's from Pinks, also known as Yoshiaki Koach.
All right.
I hope I pronounced that correctly.
I do too.
Let me see. It is. We have an anti-Bob this July, and what should we imagine when naming for her start?
What was the last part? And what should we imagine?
I will reread the whole thing. We have an anti-Bob this July, and what should we imagine when naming her for start? Or for her start, naming for her start.
So the anti-Bob is female?
Apparently.
I wouldn't have thought so. The anti-Bob simply represents all that Bob does not represent. And the anti-Bob, of course, represents a slack devourer rather than a slack emitter. Was it what should we name her or it? The thing about Bob is that the interpenetration of slack given by slack emissions goes both ways in direction and in time. So the name Bob said backwards is the same as the name forwards. And indeed, I think there's probably no better name than anti-Bob, better than Bob 2 or something like that, since it does not duplicate, but mirrors Bob. Somewhere here I have an actual glyph representing the anti-Bob, but perhaps I suspect you're talking about a new anti-Bob who has arisen. But remember, such a creation must pass the rigorous scholastic examination of Reverend Ivan Stang, the sacred scribe himself, of whom it has been written, where Gimme Bobs and Pinkness dwells, false prophets from their citadels, he topples down to nether hells. So let's hope that nothing like that is necessary in this instance. We are confident that the more Bobs there are, the better, which is why we're in the subgenius biz to begin with.
I'm going to jump on me. I was going to bring Professor Gofflin in. I didn't get an answer, so I didn't want to surprise her.
I'm just slow typing. I'm sorry.
Oh, are you ready for? I'll bring you in if you've got a question.
I am prepared. I have a question.
You have a question
right.
for the good doctor. Here you go.
I do indeed. All right, Dr. Hal. Here is a question from our friend Reverend Dr. Les, and he would like to know for $6, is competence a kind of black magic?
For how much? $11?
$6.
$6. I would say that competence is a kind of white magic, not black magic. Competence, when you're in the, how could one say it? When you're in the groove, when everything is happening as it should, because of your competence, then you are achieving the magician's aim. What does the magician attempt to do? The white magician attempts to use the natural forces that are present to achieve a result which might easily accrue in any case. But the black magician attempts to act upon matter at a distance, or whatever he or she or they do, by bending or forcing the universe to come into its relation in the matter that is desired. So to be extremely competent and to have everything magically clicking, a marvelous sensation which has occurred to me, and I'm sure to those who listen, that is a form of magic, and I find no problem with that.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal. I have here a question from Mob Miati for $12, and they would like to know, why should I be bound to thee, O my lovely myrtle tree? Asking for a friend.
Well, I don't know the circumstances, but perhaps the myrtle tree was planted at the same time as the questioner's birth, or the questioner has had a long time relationship with the tree, as in the old woodman spare that tree, and then there comes a long list as to why the woodman should spare the tree. In youth it sheltered me, when but an idle boy I sought its restful shade. It's no problem to feel affection for a tree or for trees in general, but you should be bound by love and regard for other things than yourself. And a tree is as good a place or entity to start as any.
Well, Dr. Howe, I think this is a good opportunity to go to our second monster movie moment.
Good.
And again, this is another one that was a resounding, like, yes, let's play that one again. So it's an old favorite. It's the giant behemoth. Let me bring everybody in.
Known in England as Behemoth the sea monster, and in America as the giant behemoth. The curious thing about it was directed by Eugene Leurier, who also directed another movie about a giant reptilian monster invading modern cities. In that case, it was the beast from 20,000 Fathoms and the invaded city, New York, the location of the beast's ancestral stamping grounds. Not content with having directed two movies about giant reptiles creating havoc, Leurier went on to direct a third movie called Gorgo, in which at the end the monsters are not destroyed, but walk off affectionately together in the end, leaving destroyed London behind them. But let us view this clip from the middle of the trilogy, The Giant Behemoth, or as it was called in England, Behemoth the Sea Monster. Yes, movies are your best entertainment value.
Indeed.
We bandied around a lot about a giant behemoth as opposed to what?
The medium-sized behemoth,
right?
Never heard of that. The behemoth means outrageously large, so not only is outrageously large, but a giant example of the species.
It was beyond.
So it may be. Recent scientific work seems to indicate that all of the dinosaurs that we know actually grew much larger than they are represented. And this is an interesting fact, which shall be given more emphasis in time to come.
Reverend Gofflin, did you have anything for us?
Yes, I did actually. A couple of interesting things about this film. Just kind of on a technical note, so a lot of the more complicated composites were created using a technique that we still use in stop motion today called front light backlight, where the first image of the puppet is taken under stage lighting conditions, everything as it should appear on film, and then a second exposure is taken with the stage lights off and it backlit from behind so that it creates a black and white image that is then used as a luma mat. So that's kind of an interesting technical feature. A lot of this stop motion was actually done by the famed Willis O'Brien, also known as Obie. He famously turned down an Oscar nomination for his work on King Kong because he did not want to receive an Oscar statue if his entire crew could not also receive Oscar statues, which I kind of appreciate as a below the line worker myself. So, but
Did we later
unfortunately,
get one for Mighty Joe Young, though?
actually, I believe so, but this initial act of refusing the Academy's nomination hurt his reputation a little bit,
Mhm.
reportedly, and
They're
sort of
very
marked
much.
him, yeah, as not really a team player in the establishment. So, but I think sometimes it's worth taking a stand like that. So props to Willis O'Brien for doing that.
I think Ray Harryhausen used the same method, the front light, backlight method, in animating the giant squirrel in his movie, The Three Worlds of Gulliver.
Indeed, yes. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a time-honored tradition. We still use it with digital stop motion today. So it really kind of speeds the process of matting things along so you don't have to rotoscope a mat.
Whatever works.
Exactly.
All's fair in love and war.
Hmm.
I've been doing this long enough now that I understood everything you just said. There really is language attached to everything. It's there. Once you learn the language, you're sort of things get better. It's
Well,
I know
language
it's
exists
I know
to
it's
make
true
it.
in computer world. I'm sorry, Hal, go ahead.
I just was saying language exists to make distinctions, not to blur distinctions.
But every occupation though has this specialized language that goes along with it. So a lot of learning something new is actually learning the language that is spoken around you, so you understand kind of the
Hmm.
shorthand that people are using to describe things. So
Absolutely.
I know the computer world is very much like that, where it's first couple of years of learning how to fix computers is also learning the language that surrounds everything, because it makes getting the answers a lot easier when somebody just
It does.
so. Anyway, we've got a couple more questions before this show is over. Actually, we have a number of questions. So, Professor Gofflin, I will bring you back here in just a few minutes, but I've got a question here for Dr. Hal. And it is a $20 question, Dr. Hal, and
Oh, very good.
it is from our very good friend AgriJag, and it simply is, what is time?
Hmm. Well, time is something that affects us all, but what it is has been argued about ever since time was noted as an essence or a quality. Uh, some say time does not exist, but that is useless sophistry from our point of view, because we are aware of its effects, and so it does exist. As the universe moves toward a place of no entropy, when all entropy has ceased because it can go no further, this is the forward movement of time. But recent scientific endeavor seems to suggest or believe that the flow of time can be altered, and even a fabled time machine might conceivably be constructed. However, this time machine would use more energy than is available on the planet Earth and could not be built on the planet Earth itself. Gravitational waves and time are closely created, so an enormous mass would have to be used. I'm glad this project is not on my docket. But even such is time that takes in trust our youth, our joys, our all we have, and pays us with but earth and dust, who in the dark and silent grave, when we have traveled all our ways, shuts up the story of our days. So time has an intimate relation with mortal creatures of limited duration. Time has endless rarities and shows of all varieties, as Sir Thomas Browne said, revealing old things in heaven and making new discoveries on earth. If time does not pass, this does not happen. So in order to move forward, we must endure our personal end in this scheme when we come to the ultimate terminal, where everything's final and nothing is germinal. Prospice by Robert Browning. To fear death, to feel the fog in my throat, the wind in my face, where the snows begin and the blasts denote I am nearing the place. The power of the night, the press of the storm, the post of the foe where he stands, the arch fear in a visible form. Still the strong man must go, for the journey is done and the summit attained ere the barriers fall, though battles to fight ere the guerdon be gained, the reward of it all. I was ever a fighter, so one fight more, the best and the last. I would hate that death bandaged mine eyes and forbore, and bade me creep past. No, let me taste the whole of it, fare like my peers, the heroes of old, bear the brunt in a minute, pay glad life's arrears of pain, darkness, and cold. For sooner the worst turns the best to the brave, the black minutes at end, and the elements rave, the fiend voices that rage shall dwindle, shall blend, shall change, shall become first a light, then a peace out of pain, then thy breast, O soul of my soul, I shall clasp thee again, and with God be the rest.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Hal. I have here a question for you from our good friend of the show, Reverend Dr. Billy.
Oh, great.
And he is asking a $15 question, another supreme deity question. The Abrahamic God is all-knowing, all-powerful, etc. Why would such an omnipotent being feel the need to be worshipped? Is God insecure?
Well, not by definition, but the problem is that being omniscient and eternally existent in time takes the fun out of anticipation and removes the possibility of surprise. Unless the Supreme Being seals itself into a temporal vacuole, as it were, where from itself it conveniently hides its foreknowledge. But the purpose of error is that the free being, not locked in a predestined form, may choose its destiny, may choose to be on the side of God and the angels, or to be on the other side, the rebellious side, which tends not to end well in the Christian schema. The real estate of hell was created by the creative force of the Christian Trinity, the second person, the Son, as a place for the rebel angels. But well, it also has been sadly described as a destination for rebellious human souls. Still, many doubt the efficacy, indeed the actuality of this theological absurdity. Our version of the subgenius heaven is similar to the Christian hell, but more fun if you read our sacred writings and messages. How much did you say this question was sponsored by?
This was a $15 question.
All right. This is by Emily Dickinson. A narrow fellow in the grass occasionally rides. You may have met him. Have you not? His notice sudden is. The grass divides as with a comb. A spotted shaft is seen, and then it closes at your feet and opens further on. He likes a boggy acre, a floor too soft for corn. Yet when a boy and barefoot I more than once at noon stopped to secure a whiplash uncoiling in the sun, when, stooping to remove it, it wrinkled and was gone. Several of nature's people I know, and they know me, and not without some transport of cordiality, but never met this fellow, attended or alone, without a shrinking feeling, and zero at the bone.
Beautiful, Dr. Hal. I have a $6 question from Reverend Dr. Les.
All right.
And this is near and dear to my heart, too. Have the gremlins moved to sabotaging computers instead of aircraft?
Perhaps the gremlins are in the computers, are designed in the computers without that being done consciously. Gremlins could be an epiphenomenon in the digital world. But where do we get the idea that gremlins sabotage aircraft to begin with? That might have been Flyboy's lore back in the days of the propeller-driven fighter in the World War II era of bombers and fighters, but it seems to come specifically from a short story written by Roald Dahl called The Gremlins, where he describes how aircraft in their operations are beset by these airish devils who damage the equipment and cause crashes and other problems. This story was a sensation when it came out in the 1940s, and the Walt Disney Corporation announced that they were going to make a cartoon of just this happening. And hearing that Disney was on the case, other studios also decided to make gremlin cartoons, but only one of them ever did. Disney bowed out and did not produce a gremlin-related cartoon, but Warner Brothers created two. One of them is called Falling Hair, in which a gremlin and Bugs Bunny are trapped on an airplane, and this is one of the few cartoons where Bugs Bunny tends not to get the upper hand throughout the cartoon, since the gremlin is supernaturally powered. The other one, by the same supervising animation director Bob Clampett, is called Russian Rhapsody, and in this cartoon, Adolf Hitler himself decides to fly the plane to bomb Russia, since no one but the greatest Superman of the Reich could perform the mission. And so there's Hitler piloting the plane when suddenly lots of little obnoxious gremlins appear who are in fact caricatures of the Warner Brothers animation studio, and they proceed to chop up Hitler's Messerschmitt and cause the Fuhrer to come crashing to earth, to an early grave. A very exhilarating and amusing cartoon. Most of us remember the Gremlin on the Wing episode of The Twilight Zone, where William Shatner is the only one who sees the gremlin menacing his flight, which was duplicated by George Miller in the Twilight Zone movie with John Lithgow as the gremlin tormented passenger.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
We remember those, don't we? I mean,
Oh,
those
of course.
Yes, of course.
Yes. I was actually friends growing up with a lady who was in the Women's Air Force Service. She was a Women's Air Force Service pilot. She was one of the WASPs.
Mhm.
And they had their own gremlin mascot named Fifinella. Are you familiar?
No, I haven't heard.
Yeah, she's just a little cute female gremlin, and they would paint her on the sides of their training aircraft.
Well, better to have her on your side than out there
You
sabotaging.
would think, yes, exactly. Oh, very good. Well, Dr. Hal, I have another question here. This one
Yeah.
is a $6 question from Russ Bories III. And they ask, I was wondering how a $6 question is properly asked. Also, what do you charge to answer my question?
Well, the charge is inherent. It is a $6 question. 6 American dollars. Good everywhere. Generally, as we approach $20, we consider that emolument to be so generous as to result in a poetic recitation, which we throw in. And in the Vanished nightclub show, which was the precursor of this online show, we would also record the question and then reward the questioner with a shot of Fernet Branca, which seems sadism to my view, on the part of our host at that time, Chicken John Rinaldi. But some people actually liked it and developed a taste for it. About taste, there can be no argument. So there's no charge for a $6 question because the charge has already been levied. And its essence, its existence, and its answer all encompass that simple figure of $6. We hope that you consider it worthwhile.
Indeed. And thank you, audience, for your generosity this evening. This has been a very, yes.
We have a few questions still in the queue. Audience, we always have room for more. It's like Jell-O.
While the show is running, and when the show no longer runs, please don't hesitate to visit us in the chat room afterwards, where we can bat the topics of the show back and forth or talk about any other thing.
Hal, you must be psychic because not 10 seconds ago I put that link in the chat for the audience.
Oh, all right. Very good.
And I do want to point out, for those of you who think you know what's going on, we changed the address. So make sure you get that link and not the one that you think it might have been.
Well, what if they go to that one? Do they get a helpful nudge to point them in the correct direction?
I think it tells them it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that seems correct. I think it's, yeah.
But if
Boy,
they go to this one, they will... There is a little change that we had to do for security. I hate, security really, it prevents people really from doing what they need to do, but it's also a necessary evil, I suppose. But we had to do the feature where everyone will be in a waiting room until I get there, and then you'll all come in. So you probably will be waiting for the host to join you. That's me. I'll set it up too where it's Professor Gofflin as well. We can both be hosts on that. Dr. Hal can be as well. But
one other interjection here: if they go to the site, will the site tell them what the chat room address is?
No, not anymore. We had to remove that from the website for security reasons again.
Okay.
So for those of
you you're interested to use the one that we're providing in the chat room here. I didn't know we were so beset with gremlins of that sort.
Well, so we actually had an example of this problem bite us on the nose, appropriately, oddly enough. But we used to
Terrible.
do, during COVID, we did this thing on the weekends called Subgenius Diaspora. And we did the very final one. It was when COVID, the world was opening back up, everything was starting to happen again. And so we decided to kind of moor the boats and hopefully never use them again for the whole diaspora thing. And someone posted our link to Twitter. And that caused a bunch of Zoom pirates, I guess. I'm not sure, but pirates.
Zoom bombers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Musk realm.
All of a sudden, the site got deluged with about 20 new people all at once, and then they all started showing pornography as their, and it was like, why? I don't know. But it was such a fitting end to Subgenius Diaspora. It was such
It was a proper note to go out on, frankly.
It was beautiful. That was
Well, good night, everybody, and just pull the plug.
Hey, bye. So yeah, so that's pretty funny. But we've got a couple of questions in the queue, so let's go ahead and get to them.
All right.
Professor Gofflin, let me go ahead and take the next one. Let me see. I have we have a two-parter coming up from our friend the Great Bloviator. So how about if I take the first part of that and I'll bring you back for the second part of that question?
Certainly, that sounds wonderful.
All right, here it comes. Let's see. Let me open this up. Looks a little... Say, Dr. Hal, I just heard about this Bob character. What does he have to offer the average man in the street, like myself? Is he a right fella? Give it to me straight, Doc, and go lay on the baffle gab. I'm a little hard of thinking. Joe.
Well, Joe, I must direct you to our voluminous writings on the topic of J.R. Bob Dobbs, essentially the only topic of subgenius writings found in the Book of the Subgenius and its companion volume, Revelation X, the Bob Apocryphon, together with all subsequent books, the Subgenius comic book, the Subgenius book of short stories, and so forth and so on. What Bob does is allow that slack occur, and slack is what every subgenius needs. It may not be what every human needs, but we subgeniuses are only interested in reaching and converting to our cause those who are subgeniuses or latent subgeniuses. This might include you, but slack is necessary as breathing, sleep, or food to a true subgenius. And Bob's effortless bombardment of all the rest of us by slack comes from the expressive glyph of the Dobbs head itself. Slack is leisure, the basis of culture, the time and a half time, your own time, where you are operating for your own benefit and not the benefit of that shadowy organization which opposes the Church of the Subgenius, which we call the conspiracy. Slack is the soft voice, slack the luminous cloud. We in ourselves rejoice. And thence comes all that charms or ear or sight, all melodies, the echo of that voice, all colors a suffusion from that light. And what about the second part of this question?
Yes, I can take the second part of this question. This is oops, excuse me, I just lost it here. One moment, please. Here we are. Okay, the second part from the Great Bloviator, and I will say this is a combined $33 question.
Oh, really?
And the second part of the question is also, what's with these pleasure saucers, Joe?
Well, Joe, you'd have to ask Reverend Ivan Stang, the sacred scribe, who came up with this additional subgenius lore. The eschatological element of the Church of the Subgenius was created for and explained in the book of Revelation X, the undescended new testicle of the Church of the Subgenius. And it had to do with the origin of the subgeniuses as the descendants of the Yetis, the Yetin sin, and also their ultimate end, which is that during the destruction of Earth, coming toward us, as all religions insist, the iconoclasm, as the Church of the Subgenius calls it, the subgeniuses themselves are supposed to be lifted off the planet by what has been described as the pleasure saucers of the sex goddesses. Many have speculated on what these are like. And it might be, as some have almost cynically predicted, that the sex goddesses do not look like any type of goddesses we would like to associate with, being entirely alien. And yet, through biochemical links, the sex will still occur. Indeed, it will be impossible for it not to occur. Now, one may be a member of a religion without accepting all of its tenets, but for an understanding of this end times concept of the saucer anabasis from Earth, one might profitably inspect it symbolically and not be a literal fundamentalist subgenius, although, of course, we welcome those too. Thanks for your very generous donation and for your interesting questions. Here is a poem by Walt Whitman. A noiseless, patient spider I marked where on a little promontory it stood isolated, marked how to explore the vacant, vast surrounding. It launched forth filament, filament, filament out of itself, ever unreeling them, ever tirelessly speeding them. And you, O my soul, where you stand, surrounded, detached in measureless oceans of space, ceaselessly musing, venturing, throwing, seeking the spheres to connect them, till the bridge you will need be formed, till the ductile anchor hold, till the gossamer thread you fling catch somewhere, O my soul.
I'm going to bring us all in as a surprise. I'm working on a little issue in the background. We were told that our Zoom link that we had initially published was not good. So I went out to the Zoom site, grabbed the link as they posted it, and slapped it in everywhere. So both the cast has it, and I am hearing that it is correct. So the latest one, actually, let me post that again, so when you all see it go across your screen, you'll know.
The chat room link you're speaking of, eh?
Yes,
Indeed.
the after show chat.
So
yes, don't miss the after show, even though it's slightly more confusing than usual. Just click on that address that's given in the chat.
if this is the worst thing that happens, we're still having a good day.
Oh, absolutely. We want to bring them all into the free-for-all at the end, for sure.
No, nothing has come to a screeching halt. That my I haven't gotten a blue screen. Thank you, Windows 11.
Yes.
Well, thank you for not giving me a blue screen. I really, really thank you. It used to be a lot more common than it seems to be today. But we have a couple more questions in the queue, so I'm going to go ahead and bring one from Dr. Penny, and Professor Gofflin will bring you back in just a few minutes.
All right.
Sounds good.
Hello, Dr. Hal. I have a question here for you. It is a $10 question from our very good friend, Dr. Penny. And
yes, she's a great friend of the show.
Yeah, yeah. She's an interesting character. I like her.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Lancaster, California area of late, there have been a flurry of UFOs caught by doorbell cameras. Is this a signal of the exists coming soon?
Well, one doesn't know, Dr. Penny, whether this is a preview of the sky being full of ships, of the armada of flying saucers predicted by subgenius liturgical propaganda. But the problem is that if they're here, they're going to do their thing. Why are they going to dart around like marsh fires or fireflies without any other effect? And I rather suspect that the proliferation of drones that everyone has is probably responsible for these sightings. There are drones that even look like flying saucers, and their behavior is not the behavior of airfoils, but of things which are powered by the propulsive system of drones. So that would be my suspicion. By their works ye shall know them, and if instead of a drone the light in the sky becomes larger, lands and unthinkable aliens shamble or shuffle out, I would say it was probably the drones. We live in an era of drones. I'm going to Burning Man at the end of this week, and I've been to everyone since 1996. I think that was my first one. But I didn't go to the one that occurred unofficially, where Burning Man was forbidden, and yet many people went there and they formed the city and they did everything anyway. Thus, they horrified the Burning Man organization because they showed that the organization was not necessary to enforce the creation of Black Rock City. But one thing these renegades were not allowed to do was burn a man or burn anything. So what happened? A huge fleet of drones with screens came to the center and created the image of a burning man. And last year at the same festival, I saw vast clouds of drones causing things to appear in the sky, like a gigantic pair of hands or a huge tree growing up and then splintering and decaying and falling down. All of these things are on the screens of countless drones in the sky who know where each other is and who account for wind and other things by their computer consoles or whatever they are, so that they stay steady in the sky and produce these astonishing illusions. And if they can do that, I don't see why they can't disguise themselves as flying saucers. So this would be my suspicion in this instance.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal. I have here what appears to be our last question of the evening.
The last question.
Indeed. It is a $6 question from Resistance International, and they ask, Hello, Dr. Hal. Do you have any advice on organizing anarchy or evangelicizing being evangelical? Thank you, Sir Richard Doc Bunsen.
Well, an interesting question, which is supported by two paradoxes. Do we evangelize the unevangel? That is, do we tell the good news that there is no good news? Perhaps we do. Perhaps we should. And as long as this is not presented in an element of sadism to mock the credulity of other believers, we should welcome it, because the subgenius church is an organization of mockers and blasphemers and always had been. But please remind me of the first of the part of the question.
Yes. Do you have any advice on organizing anarchy?
Oh, yes, that's right. Well, one can organize anarchy because anarchy has certain internal principles, as Bakunin, the father of anarchy, outlined. And of course, what it seems to boil down to, as I once put forth in Anarchy Comics, one of them, I don't know which issue, the essential part of it is that the state is to be dissolved or disregarded, and that each person is essentially a country and must abide by the rule of nations, must take the heat when war is declared or shortages happen. That is the responsibility which we now give to a government which ideally is benevolent enough to support us and nurture us and to take from us the headache of trying to be an individual government. If we don't do it, we must take that upon ourselves. Thus, each and every person in that wonder world I see becomes a sovereign nation. The result is anarchy.
Very good.
And there we are. I've spun the wheel a couple of times and the bar's empty.
Did you ever see my comic strip, Anarchy Equals Panarchy?
No,
No.
never did see that one.
No, well, it's in those comics, if anyone cares.
Interesting.
We care. We all care, Dr. Hal.
Maybe. Maybe.
Under this shirt, I'll show you how much I care.
All right.
He's got it tattooed across his chest.
It's a
fine.
promise.
Yeah.
Look, I say I'm even drinking my tea out of a Ask Dr. Hal
Oh,
mug.
yeah.
We all have our tea in our Ask Dr. Hal mugs today. So
See?
our producer mugs.
Why don't you have yours, Hal? Where's your
I
mug?
don't have it here. In the next room, they're having a dinner party, which I would invade if I were to go through and try to secure a coffee mug. But you can believe me that I have them.
Oh,
I have one back here with no cup, no handle, which I use, and here it is. So I can even say that I do.
There we are. That's the ticket. Oh, I think I also have that. One moment, please. Let's see. Yeah, this is my pen cup that's got all of my pens and scissors
Very
and things
good.
in it. And
Yes, you don't have to devote these things to drinking coffee. They are useful. And
this one has the
for
classic
anybody.
URL on it, the Gonzotronics URL.
That's right. Now we say askdrhalshow.com.
Yes. We secured a beautiful web address for the show.
This has faded lettering on it, so I didn't put it in the press right. We do this stuff in-house, you see.
Well, that just makes it more of a collector's item, does it not?
That's true. It's a limited edition. That's how you should market that.
It's right. It's the like when they double stamp a coin and it gets into circulation, everybody gets excited that you've got these double die coins.
Or the upside down postage stamp sought by collectors. Well, perhaps we will be creating another generation of swag somewhere along the line.
It is in process now. I needed a workspace. You might find this surprising, but I'm running out of space here.
Not like I've got that problem.
I have a
Not like any of us have that problem.
projects going on. Yeah. I'll mention if there's any ham radio operators out there. I've been looking back into ham radio. Yes, I know it's an old man sport, but I'm an old man. And the 6 meter band is wide open. Nobody uses it anymore. I was wondering if maybe, we could start using it. Just a thought.
I think this is a fabulous notion. I think we could do some interesting chaos with this.
Yes, subgeniuses could make ham radio kosher.
For those of you who don't know, the 6-meter band is what they call the magic band. Because when it opens up, you can talk all over the world. It's a really weird band. People actually bounce signals off of meteors.
Yes, exactly. And off of the ionosphere, you can, if you hit things just right, you can get signal propagation across the world, which is fascinating.
It's crazy, and it's open to the lowest level of ham radio license, which is another thing that's kind of cool about it. So you don't have
get
to,
busy, subgeniuses, and
right,
conquer this aspect of the airwaves.
but no one is using that band anymore. It's time for us to take it over.
I agree. Before the FCC repossesses it.
We'll call it the Subgenius Magic Band.
There we go.
So, just throwing that out there. You know. Anyway, folks, it was a great show. Thank you all for coming tonight. The questions are wonderful. Your generosity, your generosity just always astounds me, and makes me believe in humanity again almost.
Indeed. Thank you, audience. We could not put on this show without you.
Absolutely. But we're going to be back again next month. We're going to do this all again. We're going to get some of Dr. Hal's time, because he's going to be off at Burning Man.
I should be back before we have to do that show. Sometimes getting back from there is a challenge, just like getting there is a challenge.
But and while you're gone, we'll be here toiling behind the scenes.
That's good.
Putting all this material together to entertain our subgenius audience. And not so subgenius audience. I'm sure we have folks out there that aren't necessarily subgeniuses.
I just received a note that more people who I never heard of want to join the Church of the Subgenius.
Oh my.
And so it is.
Well,
but do they want to pay the freight? Do they want to answer the questions on the sub side? Fortunately, I'm not in charge of that.
There's the rub. That's a problem for Reverend Stang.
Do they want to send the $1,200 to Reverend Ivan Stang to join the church?
That's right, in Glen Rose, Texas. Please.
In Glen Rose, Texas. What is that address again?
Oh gosh, I almost had that memorized and I don't anymore.
It can be found at Subsite.
Yes, you may find it at subgenius.com.
Reverend Stang, feel free to post that address, because if we have anybody out there who has not paid their dues, they need to send it to Reverend Stang.
And if you do pay your dues, you get the wonderful Subgenius membership packet mailed from Subgenius headquarters itself. Many notable wonders and undertakings devolve from that.
I have it here. It is P.O. Box 807, Glen Rose, Texas 76043.
What she said.
All took a note of that.
I'll have what she's having.
And that's a Subgenius membership, so get on that, folks.
$1,200 to Reverend Stang right now.
Well, that in mass, individually, it's only $40 now?
But if you send
blown up over the years.
If you send the $1,200, Reverend Stang will send you one of those plastic cards for membership.
Ooh, there we go. Yeah.
That everybody's impressed when you pull out, and then they say, "Oh no, everybody gets those now."
I'd still lose it. I'm on my third card.
Not a valid form of ID, but
no.
Don't show it to the cop.
Cases, yes.
How about this, officer? Does this count for anything?
I'll give it to the authorities alongside my passport to Slowjamistan.
You on the ground. Let me spin those wheels one more time, because I'm superstitious. Maybe Popus Lil came back. Hold on a minute.
Did she leave?
Well, no. Her question was from last month. Apparently, it got put in after. So I don't think she's here this show.
I'm content to leave it here. We can pick up again the next time.
Mrs. Pressure says hers is in her wallet, her ID card.
Mm-hmm.
In case of emergency, call a Subgenius.
No, I've got one too.
All right, well, folks, It's been a fun show, and I'm looking forward already to next month, and we look forward as well to seeing you there. Anybody got anything else to add? Otherwise, we're going to go do all that final stuff.
Go to
No.
the chat room.
Take
Yes,
care, everybody,
indeed.
and we'll see you in chat. And I'm going to post it to both areas to make sure everybody knows it's the right link. So
That's right.
be looking for that on both sides. And we'll see you all next month.
All right,
Hail
take care.
and farewell.
Please be sure to join us for the next live Ask Dr. Hal show, home edition, Sunday, September 15th, 2024, only on Twitch. Visit our website at AskDrHalShow.com for information on this as well as where to find previous episodes. From there, Dr. Hal is only a finger click away.
The skeleton in armor. Speak, speak, ye fearful guest, who with thy hollow breast, still in rude armor dressed, comest to daunt me, wrapped not in eastern balms, but with thy fleshless palms, stretched as if asking alms. Why dost thou haunt me? Then from those cavernous eyes pale flashes seemed to rise, as when the northern skies gleam in December, and as the waters flow under December's snow, came a dull voice of woe from the heart's chamber. I was a Viking old, my deeds though manifold, no skald in song has told, no saga taught thee. Take heed that in thy verse thou dost the tale rehearse, else fear a dead man's curse. For this I sought thee. Far in the northern land, by the wild Baltic's strand, I, with my childish hand, tamed the gyrfalcon, and with my skates fast bound skimmed the half-frozen sound that the poor whimpering hound trembled to walk on. Oft to his forest lair tracked I the grisly bear. Oft from my path the hare fled like a shadow. Oft through the forest dark followed the werewolf's bark, until the soaring lark sang in the meadow. But when I older grew, joining a corsair's crew, over the sea I flew with the marauders. Wild was the life we led, many the hearts that bled, many the souls that sped by our stern orders. Oft the wild wassail bout wore the long winter out. Often our midnight shout set the cocks crowing, as we the berserk's tale measured in cups of ale, draining the oaken pail, filled to o'erflowing. Once, as I told in glee tales of the stormy sea, soft eyes there gazed on me, burning yet tender, and as the bright stars shine on the dark Norway pine, on this dark heart of mine fell their soft splendor. I wooed the blue-eyed maid, yielding yet half afraid, and in the forest's shade our vows were plighted. Under her loosened vests grasped I her trembling breasts, like birds within their nests by the hawk frighted. Bright in her father's hall shields gleamed upon the wall. Loudly the minstrels all chanted his glory, when of old Hildebrand I asked his daughter's hand. Mute did the minstrels stand to hear my story. As the brown ale he quaffed, loud then the champion laughed, and as the winds that waft the sea foam brightly, so the loud laugh of scorn out from those lips unshorn, from the deep drinking horn blew the foam lightly. She was a prince's child, I but a Viking wild, and though she blushed and smiled, I was discarded. Should not the dove so white follow the sea-mew's flight? Why did they leave that night her nest unguarded? Scarce had I put to sea, bearing the maid with me, fairer by far was she among the Norsemen, when on the bright sea sand, waving his armed hand, saw we old Hildebrand with 20 horsemen. Launched we against the blast, bent like a reed each mast, yet we were gaining fast when the wind failed us, and in the sudden flaw came round the gusty skaw, so that the foe we saw laugh as he hailed us. And as the flapping sail veered round to catch the gale, death was the helmsman's hail, death without quarter. Midships with iron keel struck we her ribs of steel. Down her dark hulk did reel through the black water. As with his wings aslant sails the fierce cormorant, seeking some rocky haunt with his prey laden, so toward the open main, beating to sea again, through the wild hurricane, bore I the maiden. 3 weeks we westward bore, and when the storm was o'er, cloud-like we saw the shore stretching to leeward. There, for my lady's bower, built I the lofty tower, which to this very hour stands looking seaward. There we lived many years. Time dried the maiden's tears. She had forgot her fears. She was a mother. Death closed her pale blue eyes. Under that tower she lies. Never shall sun arise on such another. Still grew my bosom then, still as a stagnant fen. Hateful to me were men, the sunlight hateful. In the vast forest here, clad in my warlike gear, fell I upon my spear. Oh, death was grateful. Thus seamed with many scars, bursting these prison bars, up to its native stars my soul ascended. There from the flowing bowl drinks deep the warrior's soul. Skoal to the Northland, Skoal! Thus the tale ended. Longfellow.